Trying to be fancy. Hey guys, thanks for jumping on. Let's switch my sound up real quick. Trying to be fancy. My timer doesn't want to keep working, so I decided to switch it off and get right into it. Thank you for joining us for Business with Benefits. I have to my right Dr. Imani Ma'at. Let me unmute her so she can hear everybody talking to her. Hey, Dr. Imani, how you doing?
Hey, how are you doing, Daryl Perry? Nice to see you. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
No problem. Yeah, and thank you for all the folks watching. If you're watching on your phone or device or laptop, whatever, let us know hashtag team live, hashtag team replay, how you're watching it, and also where you represent from. We have some comments already popping up. I'm going to close some things on my computer real quick. All these new things, you get fancier with the show, you got more stuff to do. But on comments, we have Eric jumped in here with Team Goofball and Team Live, he said. So James, Eric, thanks for jumping on here. Roxana, Team Live, thanks for jumping on here, Roxana. And Malik said, healthy haiku, wonderfully stated. Maybe he's a fan of the book, already giving away the goods. Thanks for jumping on here, Malik. So, Dr. Imani, you and I met by way of Donovan Smith. I'm sure he's jumping on the stream now, already in there in the background, figuring out something to say. But he has the Post Meridian friend of mine I met locally, and he said, you got to talk to Dr. Imani. I think you'll love her mindset, things she talks about, and he just recommended you and I talk. So for those of you that don't know who you are, as a Harvard-educated Black female out here, let them know who you are and what you're currently working on for the world.
All right. Well, thanks for that opening. Before I do that, I'd like to read a poem because I think that will set the stage. One of the things I love to do is to write poetry, and I have a whole series of books called The Healthy Haiku. Brother Malik preempted that. So this is a poem, and it's not haiku because haiku is actually very short, only 17 syllables. But this one is called Change, and it's in the first book that I wrote, which I'll give you information about the book, but it's called Change, and I think it's just real appropriate for the time that we're in right now. And this was written back in 2008, but it's certainly just as appropriate now. It's called Change. Change of the heart, the mind, the openness to love, to challenges, risks, failures. Change of the opportunities to learn and to experience life through another lens. Change of our attitude about change, stepping out of the box that is just an illusion anyway. Change of our perceptions of time, knowing that tomorrow is a day away from when we must start activating our dreams. Change of being victimized to being energized, ghettoized to engrandized. Change that makes us stop to breathe and to be the embodiment of God that we were created to be in the first place. Change that makes us tap into our brilliance in a way that sends us whirling through space, igniting new stars and geniuses along the way. Change, so powerful that it makes us realize that the place that had us stuck no longer exists and no longer has power over us. So we are now freed up and fired up to achieve in ways that only mirrors the magnificence of our creation on this earth. I had dedicated that to Mr. cie__Mph, a good friend of mine, also a writer, speaker, educator, done a lot of work with youth. And I often use this poem when I'm speaking because we're certainly in a period of change. And
yes.
I'm seeing a lot of people rise in terms of their creative abilities, in terms of their natural talents. You know, this having to self-quarantine, I think, on a positive note, has brought out the best in a lot of us. You know, I'm seeing things online that are just amazing, you know, that people are doing and getting involved with. So a little bit about me. I'm a health educator. I do have degrees from Harvard and MIT and Columbia and Mount Holyoke. I liked school. It was easier than the real world. And I worked at the Centers for Disease Control for 22 years as a health scientist in areas of HIV prevention as well as chronic diseases, and always had a focus on communities of color, African Americans in particular, but communities of color as a whole, looking for creative ways of reducing health disparities and, making sure that the information that our communities needed was provided to them. Not just information, but also funding. I mean, CDC is a big funding for communities. So that was a real big, important part of my journey. But it's also one that helped me to want to explore more natural and holistic approaches to health and wellness. So that's it's a big part of what I do, looking at alternatives to health and wellness, things that are more conducive with our bodies. Our bodies were designed to be self-healing, and a lot of times things that we do actually slow down the natural healing process. So
don't get me in a rant about vaccines. Don't get me on that. I'll do a whole show just about vaccines and all the bad stuff there.
Not touching it.
I'm not touching it. Everybody in the audience, please let us know if you think the quarantine helped creativity. Because I mean, for me, my show has gotten a lot more frequent since quarantine. So if you think quarantine has helped your creative juices, throw some reactions, throw some comments, let us know. I wanted to also open with your name. So whenever I see names that are unique, I pretty much always assume they mean something. So please break down what your name means for the people that aren't educated on that.
Okay, Imani means faith, which is pretty clear and simple. Ma'at, there are 42 principles of Ma'at from the ancient Egyptian history and value system. People usually think of Ma'at in terms of balance, justice, reciprocity. There are a number of things that relate to Ma'at that have to do with us staying whole and becoming our best selves. And I think that's one of the reasons I chose the name Ma'at, because I wanted to be able to hold myself accountable at hopefully at a higher level. So look it up. I tell people, Google everything. You'll see lots of information about the 42 principles of Ma'at online. There's also, people think of the goddess who holds the balance, and when you make transition, your heart is weighed against a feather, and if the heart is heavier than the feather, then you've got to start all over again, get reincarnated. You didn't get the lessons of this lifetime. And so those principles help you to understand what those lessons are that you're supposed to be learning as you're going through life. So it's
awesome. And we had Brother Malik had some love for that. He said transformation. Adam saying team live. Thanks, Adam, for jumping on here. Also a live streamer. And he also said integrative approach. So I know you mentioned the CDC earlier. Well, the only question I'm asking about the CDC is, are you glad you're not there now?
Well, as I said, it was an important part of my journey. I did choose to leave. I did not wait until retirement because I felt that a lot of my creative juices were being a little bit stifled, and the whole self-determination. I wanted to be able to continue writing and speaking and not having restrictions as a public health official, and being held to standards that, being held to other people's standards. I like to, kind of make some decisions on my own. So that's a roundabout way of saying, I'm
because you're doing great work. Because I mean, I noticed looking at your webpage and your postings and whatnot, you've done some work in the prison system, and obviously, with everything going on with George Floyd, hashtag Justice for George Floyd, everything going on there. It's not just the police system; it's also the prison system. So you taking an approach of using creative energy to help these inmates kind of enhance themselves. So talk a little bit about that, because I think that's something you don't think of in prisons is creativity. But talk about why you did that and what you did in the past.
Sure. Well, when I created the Healthy Haiku series, which is haiku is an ancient Japanese form of poetry, uses 17 syllables to tell a big story with a few words. And so I created that series to work with children, to teach children about health and wellness in a creative way. Prior to that, I was a co-director of a teen theater program where we use theater to teach young people about health and wellness, and to have them act as kind of peer educators through the arts. So Healthy Haiku had always been sort of directed at teachers and parents and mentors, people working with young people. My books are not children's books, but they're more geared towards people that work with children and with the youth. So when I did realize at one point that I really needed to teach that information to parents in particular, especially mothers. And not to stereotype, but, you know, the mothers generally do the shopping and, you know, some of the primary nurturing. And I did a workshop with the Center for Black Women's Wellness in Atlanta using the Healthy Haiku method. And it was a big hit. We had so much fun doing role play and poetry and, you know, while all at the same time teaching about really important health issues. So I learned that I think I saw an ad in the paper that said, I think they were teaching a yoga class. They were highlighting a yoga class that was being taught at the local jail in DeKalb County, Georgia. And so I called up and I said, you know, I'd love to come and do one of my Healthy Haiku workshops with the women detainees. So I went and met with them, and they said, well, you know, we actually have a program, and you can come in twice a week and work with the women for an hour, you know, each time. And I said, sure, let's do it. So I never got to volunteer. They actually hired me as the consultant, which was kind of cool.
They saw your resume, it's like, hire this woman right now, put her on the payroll.
Yeah, so, but I mean, I really, you know, I worked so many years at CDC, 22 years, traveled the world, met people of all different, you know, racial and ethnic backgrounds and cultures. And the work that I did at the local jail was by far the most profound work that I did in terms of seeing real change in people, seeing lives change just like overnight. I had an amazing crew of teachers. Well, I went from being a consultant to running the program, and that happened rather quickly once I was there. The woman who hired me announced she was leaving, so I went to her boss and said, what are you going to do with this program? You know, it's like, I wanted to make sure that we were all going to still be able to come. And she said, well, why? Are you interested? Let's go fill out the paper. I was like, Dad, I just talked myself into another job, didn't I? But it was okay. Because, you know, being there, we got to work with the females, with the males. I worked with some amazing detention officers who were like so committed to seeing change among the, you know, we were doing classes and we had people doing non-traditional. I mean, we had the reading, the writing, the science, but we had things like thinking for a change and, you know, things to process and think through things in a better way. We had meditation. We had, just so many really powerful courses that gave the inmates a different lens through which to see life. You know, I mean, a lot of the folks we saw had not really been outside of the county. You know, they're maybe like a 10-mile radius, but they hadn't been out. So just by being with us, I remember hearing some of the detainees say, you know, if we had learned this, if I had learned this when I was in 3rd or 4th grade, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. You know, so we knew that we were changing lives, and it wasn't just the poetry, but again, it was going real deep into, you know, things like gratitude, things like forgiveness. You know, how many people are stuck on something and there's so much hatred and there's so much pain and it's overtaking their lives. So, you know, the folks that we had teaching helped them to release things that could enable them to see the world differently and to see themselves in the world differently in terms of their potential. I used to always tell them, imagine yourself, because I would teach them how to speak. You know, I'm like, you know, you want to stand firm, you know, you don't want to be moving around and distracting your audience. But I said, imagine yourself speaking to an audience of high schoolers who can benefit from hearing about. Because I always tell them to write your story, write a book. You know, get paid for your book when you get out, or even while you're still here. But
I like that.
Yes, I had one of my instructors actually went with one of the gentlemen who had been released, and went with him to a high school, and he was doing exactly what I had encouraged him to do. I mean, it was
That's awesome.
up in the newspaper. I mean, it was so positive. So you see, my voice gets louder when I'm excited about stuff.
So, you're good.
But just really good work. I heard from a young lady recently who had been there. I mean, usually you don't think of people being in a local jail for like 5 years, but there was this one young lady who I had for a number of classes, and she actually wrote to me. She asked one of the instructors to bring a note to my office, and she was like, you know, you've made such a big impact on my life. I wanted to reach out to you. I heard you were still here. There's a book that you shared with us in the class, and it really changed my life. And my aunt bought me another book by the same author. And, you know, I actually went out and bought this woman another book because we did have a book program there. And so I'm like, okay, this is probably breaking the rules a little bit, but she was really grateful to get the next book. I think it was cie𝗯𝘀𝗰𝗹𝗲, who, you know, was writing about health and wellness. So it's, you know, and I've run into people on the outside who had formerly been in my classes. And again, it's like the hugs and the excitement, and, you know, I'm so glad I was able to take your classes, because it just really changed my life. So, and I could go on. That could be like a whole show in and of itself.
I know. That's why I'm going to interject you real quick. I'm going to cut you up. I love what you're saying. But the talk about creative juices, Roxana added to that, saying, I think we're being forced to think outside the box, which in my opinion is a good thing. And that's just COVID related, but also people in prison. I mean, this program you did, obviously with everything going on, we're hearing this phrase of defund the police. And I feel like there's a lack of education of what that means, because what you're saying is this prison put more services in place. They didn't, you know, get rid of anything. But, you know, when you say defund the police, this is very relevant to now that these services they're providing in prison need to be in the local community, as far as, you know, conflict mediation, mental health, you know, teaching people how to eat the right way. These are things that when you say defund the police, a lot of people hear that word and say, take money from the police. And we're like, no. That's not exactly what you're saying. We're actually saying put more services in the community, because a gun doesn't solve everything.
Absolutely. And you know, one of the unfortunate things that happened is, of course, when COVID hit, they stopped all of the programs where civilians were coming in and working with the units. So that program has not been running, and I'm hoping that you know, in the near future they'll be able to start up again. But it's, you know, it's just amazing that, you know, like you said, the program, so many of our local school systems, I mean, they're funded based on property taxes, you know, so in an area where you've got low income folks and you don't have the value of the property, you're not going to get the same level of education, the same level of opportunities for children that are in a system that doesn't have the resources. So no, I'm all. I mean, that's really where it starts. I was blessed to grow up in an area that had a really good public school system, and I'm sure, you know, if I went back now, I'd say, well, you know, I would change this. I'd change some of the history programs, but for the, you know, for the most part, people who left the school system that I was in did really well in life. And so you know, that's a blessing. I know people who didn't have the kind of opportunities that we had, and it makes a big difference, real big difference.
Yeah, James had something to add to that. He said, I think we need to get away from the idea of punishing people and work towards helping people fix their problems. Yeah, I mean, when you think about 911, I forgot what I was watching, but 911, you know, you call, you expect the firemen to come there. If somebody has a fire, you expect the ambulance to come, somebody has a heart attack. But when it's something like a kid is mad at his mom for taking his car, why does a cop have to come for that? Or it's a civil argument outside. There's no violence or anything, but a guy with a gun coat shows up and escalates the situation. So it's kind of punishing people instead of saying, you know what, send the therapist out there, send a counselor, send somebody besides the guy with the gun, because that seems to not be working for us. And
Right.
Malik said you are an inspirational facilitator. The program is outside the box. Amazing COVID exit like Brexit. So our house arrest did launch creativity. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And I knew this would kind of change once we got live. So obviously we're going to have different comments than when we talk off stage. But this haiku strategy of working with these inmates, it basically exposes them, is what it sounds like. It exposed them to a new world so that they can have a better time there and after, is what it sounds like, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, to speak with an audience that's I mean, they're there, they're not going anywhere. So I mean, they would volunteer to come to class, and to be able to speak with them about the importance of alkalizing the body. It's like, what does that even mean to normal people? The importance of understanding how the body works and what to eat, what not to eat. The fact that eating meat helps to create the state of diabetes. It's not just sugar. I mean, there's a lot.
Yes, please say that again, please.
Right, eating meat can lead to becoming diabetic, and a lot of people don't know that. So I would have, and I would always feel guilty because the food in jail is just not the best. It's very bland. It's not, it's just not great. And I would always kind of preface my remarks whenever we started the unit on diet and alchemizing. And I would say, I know we don't have a lot of options here in jail. I mean, you need to get off the honey buns because they're not good for you, period. Do not eat them, they're poison. Okay? But I would tell them, look, the farmer's market is down the street. When you talk to your loved ones, tell them that's where they need to be going to get the organic fruits and vegetables for your children. You want to stimulate their minds with good food. And I said, certainly when you get out of here, you have all of the material that we've shared in class. You know what to eat, what not to eat. Eat more greens, eat more fruits, and drink more water, alkaline water if you can, because it helps your body to balance that pH. A lot of
I probably have Evian delivered to my house or brought into my house like every week, Evian water, because it's one of the better alkaline waters you can just get out the box. But I did when you mentioned the diabetes thing, real quick, Donovan, I want to make sure he gets his time because Donovan set this up. He said, "Thank you for giving your gift to the world. Thank you, Donovan, for introducing me to Dr. Imani."
Thank you, Donovan. And Donovan and I had just met. It was like by coincidence. I met him, and then he started talking about you, and I'm like, okay, I guess I was supposed to meet Donovan.
Community people, it's community. Gotta stay with each other. But real quick, I want you guys in the comments to let us know how you feel about the way nutrition is taught in school right now, because that's something I think I want to hear everybody else. There's all different ethnicities watching this right now. So how do you feel about the way nutrition is taught to children? I know I lost an uncle to diabetes when I was 5, and I thought instantly sugar was diabetes. So as a kid, if I ate any sweets, I felt bad, or I was very minimal with how many sweets I ate. And then as I got older, the internet came about and you can research, wait, red meat is the main cause of diabetes? Oh,
right.
Didn't know that. Nobody tells you that. They tell you in school, don't eat a lot of candy, you might get diabetes. And it's really the least affecting part of it when you think about the way nutrition works. So you learning that and changing your diet, do you think that can be a big part of helping people be healthier and make these pandemics not as big a deal if we're investing in those holistic ideas of changing the way we eat? Because I'm not telling everybody to be vegan, but just overall, do you think that can help people to resist?
There's a couple points. I used to teach at the in the Master Public Health program at Morehouse School of Medicine, and so I got to meet a lot of the doctors and professors and folks there, and I found out that normally in medical school, doctors would have a lecture on nutrition. I mean, I think that's beginning to change. Certainly, we had somebody at Morehouse School of Medicine who started a complementary and alternative medicine program where he taught things that the students would normally not get in their normal medical school training. So when I think back, when I was younger, I used to have a lot of skin issues, and I remember my mom taking me to dermatologists and stuff, and never once did they say, what is she eating? Because I was a big sugar addict, sugar and wheat, which I know now I'm really, really sensitive to sugar and wheat, and once I reduce those in my diet, no problem, and so, so I'm just saying, I know you're asking the folks who are listening what happens in terms of school, but I'm like, you figure MDs would know a little something about diet, and that's a problem.
It's sad they don't. I mean, it drives me crazy to it, but I see a chiropractor every 2 weeks, and my chiropractor's had more nutrition classes than the lady that delivered my 2-year-old. That doesn't make any sense when you think about it. And we had some comments. James said it's not taught in practice, just lectured and not applied, as far as the food system. Right. And Malik added the food pyramid is probably obsolete and lobbying the food industry heavily influenced. Maybe speak to Dr. Young at the CDC. He wants you to go back to the CDC and talk to Dr. Young.
Dr. Young, I know I mentioned with him about a good friend, Dr. Young, who I've seen a lot of physicians and scientists and naturopathic professionals give a lot of flack. Because they're talking about healing people naturally. They're talking about really helping people to have optimal health. And, a lot of, in traditional medicine or more allopathic medicine, you have a big influence of the pharmaceuticals who are, it's business. It's big business. And so, I've seen people be ostracized for not writing the prescriptions and for helping people to get healthier in a more natural way. And so I'll probably leave that alone at this point. Another one of those topics that's real sensitive, but I think the blend of the allopathic and the naturopathic ways has helped a lot of people. Some of my favorite physicians have been both. They're trained in allopathic medicine, and they're also very, into acupuncture and meditation and, all of the things that, and the eating, of course, the diet and lifestyle are shared by them in ways that, regular docs don't necessarily do.
Yeah, it's interesting that it's weird nowadays when you say Google everything. Googling those symptoms does lead you to a medicine route or a treatment route, but not so much the cause. And I've been vegan for about 2.5, 3 years now, so it's been a very long time. But the reason that kind of led me to do it was just all the science behind it. If you start researching the causes of different things, and I'm like, well, this is just common sense at this point. And when you kind of see the pros and cons of meat versus not meat, it's kind of like when you see it and just really read it for a fact. You're like, you know what? I'm done. I'm going to make the change. But why do you think people with natural medicine, it gets this rap of it's touchy-feely, it's not real medicine, it's not real health? Why do you think it gets that rep, since you're someone that worked in the quote-unquote scientific side and also the natural side?
Well, I think, people are looking for clinical trials. And a lot of the natural, look at Dr. Sebi. A lot of people know about Dr. Sebi. His work was phenomenal, and he documented and proved in the courts in New York City that he had healed people from HIV and from other things. He had documented proof that what he did not just kept them alive, but reversed it, and he got a lot of flack for that, and as well as other people like him. I mean, it's like I said, you're going against the grain, and it's hard. It's hard on folks. There's a video that I like, and I always recommend to people. It's called "Eating the Rave Diet," RAVE diet, which stands
for, in the comments for people, eating the rave diet.
Eating the rave diet, and it's a whole video. It's free online, and it stands for avoiding refined foods, avoiding animal products, avoiding vegetable oils, and the final E is no exceptions. And so it's a wonderful piece. There's a quote that I like from that, and it says, well, one thing is it said that according to the Surgeon General, eating kills 2 out of 3 people who pass because of what we eat. I mean, we are what we eat. So if we're eating crap, we can't nourish ourselves. We can't can't keep our immune systems healthy. But also in that movie, something that always stuck with me is that the gentleman who created it, who was also a counselor, he said eating is the most popular form of unassisted suicide.
Ooh, wow. Well, throw some reactions for that, people. Throw some reactions for that. That's a mic drop.
That says it all. Eating is the most popular form of unassisted suicide. We eat ourselves into the grave. So
I hate watching it for my family because I was like, we're ostracized. My whole family is the vegan family, so we're ostracized. Like, is that the vegan banana and weird stuff like that, just to be smart alecks with it? But we watch them get sick and ill and stuff, and we're like, just stop eating the bucket of chicken every week. And I hate to say it that way, but that's what I see. That's just my reality. And then Roxana had a good comment to add to this that I want to dive into. I put, how do you guys feel about natural medicine? And she said, I'm going to be honest, I don't know what to believe about natural medicine. I want to believe it, but there is so much mixed feelings about it. What are your thoughts? I know one thing I'll share. There's a book my chiropractor gave my wife from Raising a Healthy Child. I think it was written in the 70s or something. And he was a primary doctor, and he talked about no vaccines, don't give this and don't give that. And he died a while ago. But the information in the book is playing out now because you see these things of Down syndrome more frequently, children having obesity, all these different issues mentioned in the book 30 years ago that is not in digital copy. It's only in print. She gave a paper copy of this book. And now we're seeing it playing in real life. So why do you think, with all these mixed information out there, why it's so mixed for people to make a conscious decision about it?
I mean, for me, I think it's almost intentional to confuse people, and this big business in sickness. We have a sick care system, not a healthcare system. Okay, I said it. Okay.
It's reality.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sick, how do we maintain people where they are? So many people get on medication for diabetes and for other things. And, the message they're given is, you're going to have to take this for the rest of your life. Really? So, that has a lot of implications for having to pay, or the health insurance having to pay for that medication for the life of the person, not to mention what it's doing to the cells and the immune system of the person. I'm not a medical doctor, so I'm not going to talk about what's outside of my field of training. Worked alongside lots of docs at CDC and other places, but like I said earlier, I'm really into empowerment, really learning about our options. And that was the name of the program at the jail, Options for Living and Learning, which applies to everything I do. We need to look at options for everything that we're doing. If you got a toothache, we know that there are meds or things that you use, but there's also things like cloves. Some people put ground clove on their tooth, and it stops the hurt, but it also has almost like a little antibiotic kind of effect. So there are lots of home remedies. The old folks used to cleanse every time there was a change of season. So deep cleanse in the body, whether it was not cod liver oil. What's the other oil that's so disgusting?
Cod liver oil, you said?
Not cod liver. Castor oil.
Castor oil, yep.
They used to make the kids line up and take castor oil. I remember my dad telling me he must have been about 11 years old, and he told his mom, he said, I'm never, ever taking that again, ever. Ever.
And Roxana just had first let me catch it. Malik said Empty Harvest is a great book about beautiful food, yet to no trace minerals. So thank you. I haven't heard that book, but I'll check it out. Roxana, this is a funny one. I'm now vegan. I'm not going to lie. I feel so much better. Coming from a Cuban family that is not veganism is loaded with very strange. I get the side eye all the time. I have my mom telling me, what do you mean you don't eat meat? Yes. Exactly. Roxana, my parents had chitlins. Oh. Black folks know chitlins. When you was a kid, you had chitlins for Thanksgiving and Christmas, which is basically just pig intestines. Horrible food. But it was something that slaves would eat because the slave owners would give the scraps over and said, hey, this is what you're going to eat. And we decided to make it a cuisine. So we dressed it up and made chitlins a good thing. But it was, on all actuality, the worst possible thing to be eating. So Roxana, good job for that. It's okay.
my family's from Jamaica, so there's mostly meat eating, and then a lot of heavy starches, the rice and peas, and that's probably consistent with your family's diet. But just a lot. I mean, and quantity is also an issue too. We just eat a lot of what we ate, and we're the sugar, the grease, the oil, the dead animal.
Yeah. And people, as you listen to this, this is two people that are on the corporate side of it. Because I work in insurance, so obviously I help people when they need health insurance. But often I'm telling them, hey, have you tried changing your diet before we worry about getting a diabetes medicine or something? Like, I'll actually ask them, and this is the reason I don't like getting paid for health insurance. If anybody calls me for health insurance, I receive $0 from that, because I believe it is a sick system as well. So I feel bad if someone calls me and says, I need health insurance for my chemo treatment. I need health insurance for my diabetes medicine. So when that happens, I said, you know what? I don't want to get paid for this. I'll advise you of what to get that you can afford, but I don't want to get paid for it because it's a bad system, and you should go see a chiropractor to get some help outside of this. I'll always throw stuff like that in there. So as someone that's on both sides of the fence, you've been on both sides of it. As people look at COVID-19, there's all this talk of the vaccine. There's going to be a vaccine, all this talk of that. What are your thoughts on, us getting normal with the vaccine versus other methods?
All right. I told you there's certain things I wasn't gonna.
Oh no, we'll skip it then. I just hit me because I'm just thinking
it's okay.
The vaccine scares me personally.
I think that people need to look deeper than just what's presented in the news. There's an undercurrent of information about 5G technology coming in, and the impact that the 5G has on our cells and on our lives and our everything. So I read stories that the first place they really rolled out 5G was in Wuhan, China. Coincidence, I'm sure. So I think people really need to be truth seekers to really understand what is this all about. I've seen even wearing masks is controversial. I've heard that by having the mask on, you're taking in carbon dioxide, which is supposed to be out, and that if you wear it too long, you'll get lightheaded and you'll get, you'll get woozy. And not that people shouldn't stay safe and shouldn't protect themselves from this COVID. But again, there's a lot of information that's not being shared, and that's not really clear. Like Roxanne said, that there's a lot of confusion. What really is going on, and I don't have the answers. I don't have any. Again, you can Google things online and try to look for other ways of explaining what's going on. It seems like we're in a natural, because by the time they release a vaccine, people are going to be lined up because they want to get protected from from COVID.
Yeah, the quick fix. Yeah.
The quick fix, but people need to understand what's in vaccines and the good, the bad, and the ugly. And
I think reading is key with this too. And you mentioned Googling everything, because my wife saw that carbon dioxide thing about masks. So when COVID first came, I was kind of with the media. I was kind of like, oh, this is just the flu. The flu kills more people than COVID-19. I was that guy. And then end of March hit, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is a lot more. It's catching up with the flu in like 2 months. And then the mask thing was like, wait, I can kill somebody and not even know I have it, and I'm in the grocery store or something. So I wear a mask just to avoid the asymptomatic transmission of it. But I read stuff. So I read the thing about masks. I found an actual clinical study that showed that it does reduce it. But somewhere a week or two ago, a video came out that said, oh, if you wear a mask too much, you can get lightheaded and all that. And it spread like wildfire. So every time I hear a viral video in the news, I always research it. Like, before I go get my life changed because of this video, who made it? Where did it come from? It happens too often, but people don't read. That's what I think all this comes down to. Nobody reads anymore.
Right. There's a piece that was in the going around recently. I guess I got it on, I don't know if it was Facebook or what the source was. Might have been Facebook, but Malik referenced Dr. Young. Dr. Robert O. Young is a naturopathic doctor who's done a lot of work on alkalizing. came up with, I think your son came up with the term cie__ʍ𝗯𝘀, but which, you know, may or may not resonate with people. But Dr. Young did a lot of work on trying to understand vaccines and stuff. So I would encourage people to look him up and see if you can find that piece. He's been through a lot. You know, a lot of people who are into natural approaches to health are written off as quacks and all of that, which is unfortunate because I know he's helped a lot of people. I've met him personally, as well as a number of docs from Atlanta that were doing really, really, really good work, who have also been attacked, let's just say attacked, and persecuted.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I think, but with vaccines, there's a lot of information out there. That video was real clear. And he actually gave a list of all of the things that babies are traditionally vaccinated for. And he said what they were and what they do. And it makes you take a deep breath. And yeah, just makes you pause and try to really understand what the whole vaccine thing is all about. I mean,
pay attention to what you're putting in your body. I mean, that's you know, anytime even a doctor prescribes something to my family, which isn't often, but when they do, I'm quick to go read the label and research any side effects, because the fact that if you guys realize that there's so many more commercials for drugs on TV than there was when you were a kid, that should be the red flag for you. Because I know when I watch the news at night, 5 out of 7 of the commercials are medications sometimes. And that just makes you kind of think about it too. And then Roxana said it's exhausting about news from social media.
It is, Roxana. Absolutely. It is exhausting. And you know, they tell you what it is, and then they play the soft music and they tell you that, you know, the things that can happen, you know, if you take this particular thing. And, you know, they go down a list of like 15 or 20 things, and then they finally say, it could kill you. But by then, the music has gotten louder and you missed that part. But so that, you know, people go to their doctor's offices and they say, well, what about such and such? I saw that on TV. It must be driving the doctors crazy, because people come in thinking they know, you know, what's the best medication for them.
Some doctors won't drive them crazy. I mean, there's doctors that get commissioned for certain medicine, so they might be like, hey, it's an extra check because you got the new drug on TV. So I think before we make this, because I could talk to you about this all day, I'm very up in arms about the way the healthcare system is. Research people, trust but verify. You know, trust your doctor but verify, because like Dr. Imani just said, they get one class in nutrition, so their job to treat the symptom. And we made a big tangent off of the healthy IQ, but the idea was you were bringing in a different approach. You didn't say, let's just do like Job Corps. Let's not just do, you know, skills training. This is more, let's work on your creative side, because that's something that can foster everything else in your life. And talk about how that helps kids, because I know the one book, the third book, is for helping kids with obesity. So talk about how the healthy IQ is helping children with obesity.
Well, the interesting thing about childhood obesity is that it pretty much mirrors adult obesity. About 1/3 of children and teens are either obese or overweight. Why? Because they're eating the same things that their parents are eating. So, you know, 1/3 of the adult population are obese as well. So in this particular book, it covers the, I don't know if this is going to show, it does show the right way, Healthy Haiku 3. It covers the science as well as, you know, poetry about childhood obesity. It's a tool that parents and teachers and mentors can use, either along with their regular curriculum or have this as a curriculum. I mean, it really provides a lot of information. There's a whole section about alkalizing in it. There are samples of poetry about childhood obesity. Let me see if I go to one of the first pages. And again, haiku is short, and it's supposed to be supposed to kind of just give you, you know, a big bang for just a few words. Here's one about live and raw foods. Live and raw foods help stimulate our consciousness, to see and be well. It's real short, but it's about the power of live and raw food. One of my previous books, there's a piece that I usually quote. It has to do with violence, and it's when he pulled back his fist, he stared at the lifeless face of his best friend. Just, you know, and after I wrote that one, it must have been about 2 weeks later, I saw that same story on the news, you know, about two best friends, and one of them had punched the other in the temple, and the other kid died. And, you know, so anyway, the poetry is a way to spark conversation and to have dialogue. There's a whole process that we go through of brainstorming, and the children will say with diet. Well, I'll ask them, okay, give me a list on one side of the board of foods that are good for you. Give me a list on the other side of foods that are not so good for you. And at the bottom, give me the consequences of eating too many of the foods that are not good for you. And so you know, we go through brainstorming, they add things, and even in adding things, I find that the younger children, the good list is like straight fruits and vegetables, maybe seeds and nuts. As the children get older, the teenagers are, well, can we put fried chicken on the good side? And, can we put pizza on the good side? And so it sparks conversation about the healthier way of doing pizza. You know, yes, you can still have pizza. You don't have to put gobs and gobs of cheese on it. You don't have to put pepperoni on it, you know, for it to be a whole wheat crust or, you know, whatever. So throughout the dialogue, we have conversation where I'm constantly adding to the conversation, because I'm really helping to empower the children to say what they know, and then adults when I do it with adults as well. But at the end of the brainstorming, you have all of these words and phrases on your board, and from those words and phrases, I have them start writing haiku. So they're like piecing together words that help them to remember the key points from the conversation and from the brainstorming. And so that's a big part of the healthy haiku method. And so I talk about that in the book. I'm doing a whole training course from this particular book for teachers and mentors and so forth. And I just recently updated the book and the ebook, which are both on Amazon, Healthy Haiku 3, How to Fight Childhood Obesity, One Poem at a Time. But I'm going to be doing training and it'll be online. It'll be easy for people to take this and then, you know, go through a real short course and be able to integrate that into what they're teaching young people about health and wellness. It's got a lot of good tips, a lot of fun poetry. It has space for them to write their own poetry. It has a to-do box, you know, things that you can do with young people that will help to keep them healthy, including physical activity and things that will expand. And, you know, I tie it in with not just eating healthy to be healthy, but tying that in with our purpose in life. You know, when you're solid, when you're healthy, when your mind is healthy, you can really step into the name of the show that I'm about to start again, my former blog, step into your power, step into your purpose in life. You know, we have so much potential when we're born, and it just seems like as people get older, that potential curve like goes down as opposed to going up. And so I connect healthy diet, healthy living with helping you to be who you're supposed to be in this lifetime. You know, so you're not just taking up space. You know,
I think the literacy, do you think literacy using that since it's a structured thing, does that kind of foster, you know, because you mentioned making a list of good food, bad food, what you should, you know, what bad will happen. Do you think the structure of that is what helps make it so powerful, because our analytical mind kind of forces us to be real about something? Do you think that's kind of what makes that happen for you?
I think so. I mean, I never know what people are going to say in those. I've loved working with children and, you know, doing that particular brainstorming, because especially the consequences. And it's so amazing how much young children know. Not that it's all true, but, well, you can get diabetes, you can be overweight, you can get high blood pressure, and you can die as a consequence. One of the kids, I'm like, okay, we're done with that brainstorming. We got all the way to that point, but it's a fun way. It's a real interactive. I think it's so boring to have a teacher stand in front of a class and just, everybody's taking notes based on, what the teacher is saying, as opposed to really creating dialogue and facilitating exchange about what people know. I've had children as young as preschoolers, 3 and 4 years old, and we're having a discussion about diabetes, and I ask, so how many of you know somebody in your family that has diabetes? All the hands go up. All the hands go up. And so I'm like, how many of you think that you might get diabetes too? All of the hands go up. And I'm like, no. I was like, I told them what happens in families is, and they don't even know the whole thing about genetics. But what happens in families more than genetics is diet and lifestyle. You're eating the same things, you're doing the same things or not. And so it really makes sense that you're going to have the same outcomes. I know so many times when I've been to, the doctor, and they say, well, first of all, they ask what medication you're on, and I say none. And they don't understand why I'm not on medication. But what was the other point? The other point was that the medication, it's okay, I'll come back to it.
That's okay.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Roxana, thank you. Thank you for
she says she loves that. And I think it's brilliant using, because I think of haiku, the 17, being such a structured thing. I think that focuses you into what's the most important thing I can put into this poem, and what's the most actionable thing. So I think that's why kids like it, prisoners like it, adults like it, because it really makes you be real about it. If I'm gonna make this thing work, I have a limited time. So let me be real with those things. Oh, I lost them for a second. Sorry about that. But Dr. Imani, great information. I want to be respectful of people's time. I try to keep this to an hour or so. Malik said thank you to both of us. So thank you, Malik. For the people that want to learn more about the work you're doing and everything, let them know how to find you, how to keep up with you.
Okay. There are a couple ways they can reach me. HealthyHaiku.com is the website that has all of my haiku material. Also the book, Healthy Haiku 3, How to Fight Childhood Obesity, One Poem at a Time. It's on Amazon. They can, find the book there in both soft cover as well as an ebook. And Dr. Imani's card, which is DRIMANIS card.com. It's a digital card that has all of my information and programs and services. What else did I leave out? You can always email.
Oh, your retreat.
Oh, the retreat center. And that was part of. This we have to do this again. The Maroon Peak Retreat Center in Georgia is an amazing place to hold retreats and small meetings. Right now we're focusing on small meetings as well as overnights for a family of 6 actually can stay. But it's nice to have options outside of going to the local hotel, which is going to be more comfortable. We've got a sauna, we've got a hot tub. We're actually reducing the use until after the COVID emergency is over. But it's a beautiful place. So I tell people to look up maroonpeakretreat.com if you're going to be in the Atlanta metropolitan area. It is an amazing place. I love it. I miss it. It was my home. My home turned into a retreat center. So I encourage you to go there and enjoy it. I've been in Virginia Beach for a while. And
I'm from Newport News, technically, as a military kid. Newport News is my quote unquote home. So I know Virginia Beach well.
Okay. Wonderful. Yeah. So
But then this had a great comment from Roxana. She has a great comment that you'll like this a lot. It's all about educating them. My kids are adults and they're both vegan despite other Cuban grandmother giving them the side eye. They know what our family is used to eating, and what we were taught to eat is not the best way.
Right.
That's a great way to end that, Roxana. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
But a thank you for both of us.
Good comments. Yeah, I think there were some other things I wanted to share. Quantum energy. We can do that on another show, or if you come on my show, we can do a whole thing on quantum energy wellness, which can't necessarily see it, but lots of good things happening in the there's a program called Limbic Arc. But again, if you go to my digital card, Dr. Imani's card.com, you'll see that. Got information about Bitcoin, about alternative ways of creating wealth.
Being outside the box.
Yeah. Way outside the box. But thank you so much, Daryl, for having me on the show. I've enjoyed this. I can't wait to start up my own show again. It's really nice to have exchange, to have an audience that can ask questions and participate. There were a lot of people sitting on the sidelines who didn't say anything, but that's okay. Next time, we appreciate those who did.
That's okay. The replay will have a lot of comments. The replays do a lot on LinkedIn, but this is my home. I don't get on Facebook and all that. So if you're on Facebook, this is on YouTube too, guys, so you can share it with people. But thank you, audience, for tuning in and asking questions. We'll catch you next time on Business with Benefits. And you guys be safe and be healthy.